Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Warning: this video will contain spoilers for Robert A. Heinlein's novel, Friday. This video may also contain discussions and/or images of violence, sexual situations, and drug use. Viewing beyond this point is a choice you have made, and you take responsibility for that choice. Thank you, and please have a nice day.
Hello and welcome to this video. I hope everyone's doing well, I hope everyone is having fun, and I hope the universe is treating you well. Today's video I'm going to be discussing Friday by Robert A. Heinlein. This novel came out in 1982, and I think I was 13 or 14 when I read this. It'd been out a year or two when I read it. My mom had picked it up new when it came out, and I had read it. I had picked it up and read it, pulled it off the bookcase and read it shortly afterward. The story follows the main character in the story is, of course, Friday Jones. That's her name, Friday Jones. She is a genetically engineered human being. Heinlein refers to him as artificial person. And in 2024, when you think of artificial person, you think more along the lines of a cyborg or an android or something. But in 1982, artificial person was somebody who was genetically engineered. She was genetically engineered to be stronger, faster, smarter. Basically the intro to the $6 Million Man, but all natural, all muscle, bone, skin. She is a courier. Specifically, her job title is combat courier. She's highly trained. She works for an organization who basically the organization has different facets to it. They have soldiers that can be hired, much like the French Foreign Legion, doctors, nurses, lawyers, couriers, assassins, what have you. And their legality is at best fuzzy. Corporations have basically infiltrated and taken over governments at this point. The United States has fractured. You have like the California Republic, the Texas Republic, your Midwestern states are all form their own country, your East Coast. And like I said, they're all run by big multinational corporations. And I will give a trigger warning here, trigger warning. Yeah, trigger warning is probably about the best way. It's kind of an understatement at this point. In the very first chapter of the book, we have a murder. The main character murders some people. The main character gives the reader advice on how to subvert the government, and she gets raped multiple times. And this is all in the first chapter. One of the aliases she goes by, and basically at some point settles on this name, is Marjorie Baldwin. We find out that one of her progenitors, one of the specimens that her DNA was extracted from, had the last name Baldwin. She, like I said, she's employed. People contact her boss, and they send her out to, move data, move information. Her body has been outfitted. In fact, her belly button has been modified where it's actually a pouch, kind of like a kangaroo pouch. She can store stuff in it. Plus all your usual places that you expect to find contraband on the human body, the mouth, on males inside the urethra, the penis, the anus, women, the vagina, and all, ears, and the hair and stuff like that. All your places that if you're have experience with law enforcement, or me being being a retired correctional officer, all the places you would naturally look for contraband. Plus, like I said, her body has been genetically engineered for other places to hide contraband or data, stuff like that. And like I said, in the first chapter, she's returning from a mission. She, like I said, she kills somebody that's trying to follow her. She gets captured by her enemies, and she gets raped and tortured multiple times. In fact, one of her captors cut one of her nipples off. She is, because of her her genetic engineering and because of her training, she's traumatized by it, but she's able to work through it much faster than a normal human being would. And she also tells you, between the time of the murder and the time of her capture, that she gives you advice on how to circumvent the government, which is some really good advice and very apropos in this day and age. She gets rescued from that. Her boss, like I said, this is set in the future. Probably anywhere from 100 to 150 years in our future. So yeah. She is a member of what's called an S group. It's basically a polyamorous type family. She finds out that her co-wives and co-husbands are relatively racist, which basically upsets her. She reveals to them that she is an artificial person, which, because of the bigotry toward artificial people, they basically kick her out of the family. They divorce her. All because she stands up for one of the younger family members that married a person that wasn't, for lack of better, okay, we there's really no good way to say this. She marries a black person, and the family, this is when the racism of the family is revealed. Even though the person she marries is a head botanist and has all these degrees, makes tons of money, skin's the wrong color. Skin's too dark. So they ostracize this younger family person, and Friday stands up for her, and in the process of standing up for her, reveals her genetic lineage and is promptly kicked out of the family. She makes friends in British Canada, the Tomies, and they're artist types, scientist types, and they really don't care about her lineage. Something I've failed to mention so far is that artificial person, or the genetically engineered people, are an analog for any disenfranchised group, whether they be any real disenfranchised group, whether it be black people, Latinos, LGBTQIA plus people, any disenfranchised group. Basically, Friday is a stand-in for them. And that's, kind of what she does. She's there kind of as a symbol. That's one of the themes of the book, is the how some people will ostracize things they don't understand, things that are different, and it scares the hell out of them. She also it also deals with people that are accepting and are welcoming of change and difference, and the whole, that they understand that things change, things evolve, that the only thing that stays the same is change. To quote Rush, change never lasts. Changes never last. Only change does. And while she's befriending these people, she's recovering from getting kicked out of her family. The road goes to hell in a handbasket. All your multinational corporation countries basically start going to war. Various groups claim that they're the ones doing it, and it's really not them who do it. It's there's other factors going on. There's some great passages when after Friday has been, the first chapter where she gets raped and tortured and all that good stuff, and she's recovering. There's some great passages, some great exchanges between her and her boss, where her boss is feeding her information, and because anything outside of her profession, anything outside of being basically a combat courier, anything outside her training, she's relatively naive to. But, like I said, she's been genetically engineered for this exceptional intelligence, exceptional ability to put things together, kind of a liquid or flowing intelligence. It allows her to think around corners naturally. She doesn't have to put any effort. Her brain just does it. Her brain just does stuff like that because of her engineering. Plus, we find out during this section of her recovery that her boss has so manipulated the records of her creation and destroyed things and had things rewritten that there is no way that anyone could prove that she is an artificial person. And so that she has, that kind of works against her in a couple portions of the book, and it works for her. And Heinlein, you get both sides of everything. You get both sides of a fix. Like I said, the boss has made it impossible for anyone to find out that she's an artificial person, but that works against her when she's trying to prove that she is. In certain cases, and there's certain cases in the book where she tries to, and there's certain cases where these records being falsified, destroyed as needed, works in her favor. Well, she's kind of living with the Tormes, and she befriends them. It is a interesting group. You have a wife with two husbands, and basically she's in control. She's the leader. She's the breadwinner. Though the two husbands have high-paying jobs, and it was throughout the story up to this point that we kind of understand that because of Friday's naivety, she was never polluted with the bias of sexual taboo, social taboos, and stuff like that. And basically, for Friday, an orgasm is an orgasm is an orgasm. And it doesn't matter the gender of the person that you give an orgasm to or receive an orgasm from. And that is part of Heinlein's. That's one of the positives that have held up in his writing. Some of his stuff, at the time he wrote it, considered very woke, very leftist, very progressive propaganda. By 2024 standards, not so much. Some of it did hold up. Friday is a perfect example. We go through the book, and Friday winds up migrating off Earth. And basically, we find out at the end of the book that this story is basically her journal. And this is basically her diary journal And she's writing it in such a way that she wants people to read it. She knows that somebody else is going to read this down the road. And it is a really good story. It's high adventure. There's a lot of stuff if you look at what's going on in the world today with companies and their rights versus the individual person's rights, protections that corporations get, tax breaks, their power to influence government. I mean, there are parallels that are just scary. And this, like I said, I read this, I was 13, 14 years old. I read it, was intrigued by it. I almost stopped reading it in the first chapter because of the way I was brought up, or to respect women, to respect the female form. When they slice her nipple off, it's for 13 or 14, hell, at 54, it's still kind of jarring. And I've read and this is a book I read about once a year. So from about 1984 to 2024, I've read it that many times. It is one of those books, and like a lot of Heinlein's books, Heinlein was a cat person. And there are some bits and one-liners and stuff regarding cats and the protocols cats expect. And it's very, very interesting that this man who writes these books, these fascinating books, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, The Rolling Stones, Tunnel in the Sky, Half Spacesuit Will Travel. This author was this much of a cat person, and through a lot of, especially from late 60s through his death, from basically Stranger in a Strange Land forward, cats are supporting characters. Cats become supporting characters in his books. It's just what he writes about cat. It's just, they're there. And if you're a cat person, you're like, woo! And if you're not a cat person, you're probably just like, yeah, whatever. Like I said, Heinlein in his later books, probably starting in the mid to late 70s. Two things from stuff that I've read that was put out by Virginia Heinlein, his wife, before she passed, and after he had passed, but before she passed, things that she had put out, things that came out, interviews and stuff, that probably starting in about 74, 75, Heinlein had developed this attitude of he was gonna write good, solid stories, but he was gonna push the boundaries. He was doing the I'm Robert Heinlein, fuck off. He was gonna push these boundaries. He was gonna push and see how far he could go as far as sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And he did. To sell his book, To Sell Beyond the Sunset. Yeah, that book is pretty close to softcore porn in parts. That would probably be that would be an interesting book. That would be a multi-book monster. This video is running long because I just don't want to break this into two parts. Yeah, Heinlein, plus he entered the horny phase of his writing career, which it's interesting, a lot of science fiction writers, a lot of fantasy writers near the end of their life went through a horny phase. I don't know. I think part of it is, and I think a lot of it, if you look at like Stephen King, some of Stephen King's works, Stephen King pushed, after he made it big, probably after about The Shining, maybe Pet Sematary, or I want to say after The Shining, a lot of his books, he gets into it. Gets into some really crazy shit. But it's not crazy shit for crazy shit's sake. It's crazy shit that makes the story work. It causes the story to happen. I would highly recommend this book. Like I said, the first chapter is rough. The whole rape scene, it's not pornographic. It's not, you don't get the ins and outs of what they're doing to her, other than the general vibe of she's getting raped multiple times and they cut her nipple off. You get a lot of innuendo, you get a lot of banter, and it's triggering. Even to this day, there are a lot of things in this book that push social norms, that push social boundaries. But if you have a mind and you're open to information, you're open to new information, you're open to things that you may not agree with, it's worth it. I highly recommend the book. Like I say, it's a really, really good book. And that's about it. So, as always, remember to be a good human, be good to other humans. Peace.